The day after my father's funeral, who was a doctor, an unexpected event occurred. My brother and his wife, who hadn't even shown their faces at the funeral, suddenly came to my house. "What are you doing here? Get out!" However, Olivia, my brother Greg's wife, retorted with a mocking laugh. "What are you doing here? You should be the one to leave. This house has been inherited by my husband, the eldest son." "What? What did you just say?" "We are the ones who will live here. Don't stay forever. You should leave quickly." Instead of defending me, Greg is grinning and nodding. At that moment, my patience reached its limit. Their behavior towards my father before his death, their current attitude, everything is unforgivable. Now, trying to control my anger and pretending to be calm, I revealed the truth. "What are you talking about? I am the heir to this house." "Wait, what do you mean?" From then on, a hellish time awaited this foolish couple. My name is Hillary Simpson, a 32-year-old single woman working as a company employee. I have been in a relationship since last year, but I'm still considering marriage. Our family runs a local internal medicine clinic called Simpson Clinic. My father was a doctor, and I have an older brother, Greg, who is 5 years older than me. My mother, a nurse, passed away from illness 5 years ago. Although we are often perceived as wealthy, that's not the case. Both my parents were humble people. We lived as a normal family. We didn't live luxuriously, but we went on domestic trips once a year, and my parents paid for my tutoring and education expenses. I grew up in such a warm home. Indeed, our family home is a respectable building. After I graduated from university and left home, my father rebuilt the old house. My mother didn't get to spend much time in this new house before she passed away. Now it's just my father and me in this spacious house. When talking about my family, I can't avoid mentioning Greg. Simply put, Greg is a frivolous person. We lived modestly, but Greg was always the exception. Dad, buy me the latest game and computer during high school. Greg often pestered my father, who always advised him, "Greg, your grades aren't good. Why not study a bit instead of just playing games?" "Shut up! You are a doctor, aren't you? You must have plenty of money. I just bought you another game recently. Why not think seriously about your future?" "So you won't buy it if that's the case. I'll cause trouble at school again." Greg, who hated studying, attended a low-ranking high school and often got into trouble with his bad friends. In the end, my father always gave in to Greg's demands. Greg also said this to me, "Studying again? Trying to be a good girl to please our parents. It's none of your business. Leave me alone. It's pointless for a woman to study. You're ugly and unappealing. You probably won't even be able to get married." Growing up seeing Greg like this, I naturally came to dislike him. He barely attended the third-rate university he somehow got into, repeating years and eventually dropping out. He quit the job my father found for him, saying it wasn't a good fit. Even after leaving home, he never held a job for long and would come to ask my father for money when in need. I used Greg as a negative example and devoted myself to studying. I chose a high-ranking high school and university, and although I didn't become a doctor, I managed to join my dream major corporation. Hillary is the pride of our family. She's nothing like Greg, my father often said. Greg rarely came to our family home except when he needed money. But 3 years ago, he brought a woman home claiming he was getting married. His wife's name is Olivia. It seems they met at a casino. Wow, what a lovely house. As soon as Olivia entered the house, she looked around without any hesitation. Of course, my father is a doctor, Greg. So it was true, huh? You didn't believe me. My father and I just watched them dumbfounded as they chatted away without even greeting us properly. Then Greg said to my father, "Dad, $30,000 will be fine for a wedding gift." "What are you talking about, Greg?" With a menacing look, I said, "What's wrong, Dad? Can't you give that much for your eldest son's wedding?" All right. But that's the limit." "Yay, thank you, Father." Olivia suddenly spoke in a sweet voice, and Greg looked satisfied as he put his arm around her. Since then, I haven't met my brother and Olivia at all. One day I asked my father about Greg. Dad, have you heard from Greg? Only when he's in need of my money. It seems he had debts, and I paid them off. Greg again. Dad, you don't have to do that. But if I didn't, he might turn to you next. I was speechless, having never considered that. My father continued with a troubled look. You have grown up so well, but Greg, I wonder why he turned out this way. Did I raise him wrong? No, Dad, it's not your fault. I couldn't find any more words to say. Then during dinner one evening, my father suddenly brought up a serious matter. Hillary, actually, I've been diagnosed with cancer. What? No. It's quite advanced, and even with surgery, if it has spread, I might not have long. Why didn't you tell me something so important? I couldn't hold back my tears and covered my mouth, but my father seemed surprisingly calm. I've decided to hand over the Simpson Clinic to a younger doctor. I'll focus on treatment, so I won't worry you, Hillary. Dad, you're my father. You can rely on me for anything. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you. I held my father's hand tightly, tears in my eyes. Later, my father decided to undergo surgery. Feeling I should inform Greg, I told him about our father's cancer and the date of the surgery. I see. Dad has cancer. Please visit the hospital on the day of the surgery or any time after to encourage Dad. Yeah, got it. See you later. Greg hung up the phone in a tedious manner. Then came the day of my father's surgery. I was at the hospital from early morning, but Greg was nowhere to be seen. During the long surgery, all I could do was pray for my father's safety. The surgery was a success, but the reality was harsh. The cancer had spread to many parts, and it was impossible to remove it all. At best, a year, maybe even less. I was shocked by these words, but my father kept his cool. As a doctor, it can't be helped. This is reality. As long as I live, I will do what I must. He said this with a smile to me, who continued to cry. A few days later, I stopped by my father's hospital room after work. I heard voices arguing inside. I'm telling you to give me the money. Dad's going to die soon anyway, Greg. Please be quiet. Then hurry up and give me the money. Where's the cash card? I'm telling you to stop. The moment I entered the room, I saw Greg dragging my father out of the bed and slamming him to the floor. What are you doing? Stop it, Greg. My father gasped in pain and his IV line had come out. Oh, it's you, Hillary? How could you do this to Dad who just had surgery? This is inhumane. I'm just asking for my inheritance in advance. It's Dad's fault for not giving it to me. What money? Even so, you don't have to be this cruel. I was openly furious. At that moment, Olivia, who had been looking bored, chimed in, it's Dad's fault for being stingy with money when he has such a short time left. He needs to be taught a lesson. Greg smirked. Exactly, Olivia's right. Don't interfere, Hillary. Tell me where the cash card is. At that moment, nurses alerted by the noise rushed into the room and started to care for my father. Seeing the nurses, the two of them seemed guilty and hurriedly left the room. I explained the situation to the nurses and asked them to ban these two from the hospital. My father had suffered bruises from Greg's violence. I was trembling with frustration and anger. Hillary, don't worry. I'll be all right. I continue to care for my father, but it was painful to see him getting weaker day by day. Still, whenever I went to the hospital room, he always greeted me with a smile. I tried to stay by his side as much as possible during my father's hospitalization. Greg called me just once. Hillary, just a little bit. Lend me some money. What? What are you talking about, Greg? I can't contact Dad, and I'm banned from the hospital. Who else can I ask but you? Greg, why don't you work properly? There's no way I'd lend you money. TCH, well, it's fine. I'll get the inheritance. When Dad dies, wonder how much a doctor's inheritance is. Dad is fighting his illness right now. Don't say such ominous things. Shut up. Just keep nursing that old man. See you. The call ended abruptly. I could only hold my phone, shaking with anger. I continued to focus on nursing my father. However, his condition did not improve, and he was eventually moved to a palliative care ward. "Hillary, I'm sorry for putting you through so much pain," my father, now unable to get up, murmured. "Don't say that, Dad. I don't have much time left. I'm glad I made it in time." "What do you mean by made it in time?" My father then told me something. A few days later, my father quietly passed away. I hugged his body and cried, but I couldn't stay like that forever. I tried to contact Greg afterward, but there was no response. As expected, I had to prepare the funeral by myself. The funeral was well attended and fitting for my father. However, Greg and Olivia were not present. The day after the funeral, as I was paying respects to my father's portrait at home, I heard the front door. There stood two people. "Greg, why are you here now? And where did you get that key from?" "Oh, I took it the last time I saw Dad. This house is really gorgeous." Without any hesitation, Greg and Olivia entered the house, walked around, and then casually opened the fridge to take out drinks. I couldn't contain my anger and yelled, "What are you doing? You didn't even come to Dad's funeral. Get out right now." Greg sat on the living room couch, smirked, and looked at me. "Get out? You sure are bold to say that, Hillary." Then Olivia cut in. "The one who should be leaving is you. This house will be inherited by Greg, the eldest son." "What? What are you talking about? Don't stay here any longer. This will be our house from now on, so leave now." Greg was smirking and nodding. I was beyond furious, but managed to calmly convey the truth. "Actually, I am the heir to this house." "What? That can't be, Hillary. What are you talking about?" "Why would you inherit?" "Because it's written in Dad's will." I took out my father's will and showed it to them. It stated, "All real estate and deposits are to be inherited by my biological daughter, Hillary Simpson." "What?" As they stared intently at the will, I continued calmly, "Dad had a lawyer prepare an official will. This is the proof." TCH, that old man. Greg glared at me with frustration, but Olivia, smirking, cut in, "Don't worry, Greg. There's something called a reserved portion in inheritance. If there are two children, the inheritance should be divided equally." "Oh, Olivia, you're smart." "I did a little research, so I won't allow you to proceed on your own. We will definitely claim our reserved portion." Faced with Olivia's aggression, I sighed deeply. "What's the problem?" "Hurry up and divide the inheritance, including this house." "Listen, Greg, I'm not giving you any inheritance." "What?" "We have a right to the reserved portion." As they continued to argue irritably, I firmly said, "That's impossible. Greg has been excluded from the inheritance." "What? What does that mean?" They looked surprised and at each other. That's when I decided to explain in detail. Before his death, my father, just like with the will, had a lawyer arrange the procedure to exclude Greg from the inheritance. This was a legal step taken by my father, the decedent, through a lawyer, as he did not want Greg to inherit. This meant they could not even receive the reserved portion. When my father said, "I'm glad I made it in time in the hospital room," this is what he meant. That can't be possible. "Exclusion from inheritance?" Olivia hysterically screamed. I continued explaining calmly, "To exclude someone from inheritance, there needs to be a clear reason. For example, repaying debts incurred during the deceased's lifetime or causing physical or mental anguish." "Greg, does any of this ring a bell?" Greg was speechless and just stood there in shock. Dad gathered evidence and filed a petition for exclusion from inheritance with the family court, which was granted. "So you two can't receive any of Dad's estate. Do you understand?" "It's a lie. That can't be." "It's a lie." The two of them looked utterly despairing and pale. "Now that you understand, please leave this house. It's mine now." Then suddenly they began to plead with me. "Hillary, help us. Could you share just a little of the inheritance? I'm in financial trouble. I spent too much thinking I had Dad's inheritance. Yes, he's the eldest son, so we thought we would get the house and the inheritance. I was deceived. Give us the money quickly. I took a deep breath and unleashed my anger at them. You must be joking. I won't give you a single penny of Dad's estate. Don't ever get involved with me again. But Hillary, we're siblings, right? I never once thought of you as my brother. You two are good-for-nothings. Flustered, Greg was met with my firm stance. If you don't leave quickly, things will get difficult. I'll call the police if I have to. They left as if fleeing. That was the last time I saw Greg. I later found out that they had been extravagantly spending money they didn't have, counting on my father's inheritance, and had incurred debts. Now they live in a cramped, run-down apartment. Greg is doing manual labor, and Olivia is working night shifts while struggling to pay off their debts. Either way, it's no longer my concern. I went through the necessary procedures and inherited my father's estate and house. Even after paying inheritance tax, a considerable amount remained, and I can't thank my father enough. I'm planning to get married soon. My partner understands my feelings and has suggested, let's live in your family home after we get married. I plan to start a new life with the person I love, carrying my father's memory in my heart and living happily. With that thought, today, like every day, I pay my respects to my father's portrait.